Welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast for people who are struggling with infertility and trying to conceive and who are facing more obstacles than options when it comes to having fertility testing or treatment in their home countries. Alongside other experts, I will share, educate and empower you on your journey and help you to learn more about going abroad for advanced fertility testing and treatments like IVF and egg donation. I'm Emma Haslam, your host, now mum of one, and the go-to expert in fertility treatment abroad. Since the birth of our son in 2018, I have made it my mission to make fertility treatment more informed, transparent, accessible, supported and affordable for more people. And I help people just like you to become unstuck, to find a best fit clinic that truly meets their needs and to have fertility treatment on their terms and timescales so they can achieve their dreams of growing their families. And I'm here now to help you too. Be sure to check out the free resources in the show notes for more help after listening to today's episode. Hello, hi and welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast. It's Emma Haslam here, your host and fellow infertile pal and now mum of one after a very long and arduous journey with trying to conceive, which if you've been here for a while, you will have heard. And I'm presuming that if you are listening to this podcast, the vast majority of you will be, sadly, in a similar situation of trying to conceive and struggling, potentially looking at considering options for things like advanced fertility testing, treatment, things like IVF, egg donation, IUI, egg freezing, and all of that fun stuff. But ultimately, I suppose the point here is that you are likely to be struggling to conceive. And it got me thinking about what I would say to you if we were together. So what I mean by that is I want you to imagine that we're sitting having a coffee, tea, water, glass of wine, whatever, but we're together and you're telling me everything that's going on for you. You're probably feeling some of these things, maybe all of these things, stuck, confused. Maybe you don't really know what to do next. Maybe you're undecided about whether going abroad is right for you. And I want to tell you what I'd say to you in that moment. The first thing I'd say to you is this. You are not doing anything wrong. This is not your fault. I speak to so many people, clients, people in my community, who, a lot of them, and I had this as well, a lot of people blame themselves, sometimes for their infertility, sometimes for the fact that they've not yet conceived or been able to have a live birth, but sometimes it's for things like not making a decision quickly enough, in inverted commas. And I think we give ourselves a really, really hard time when we're already going through a hard time. And, these things can feel very difficult and not easy decisions to make. Big life decisions aren't often easy or quick to make. But I think because we have the pressure of the kind of ticking clock as well going on, I think that makes people question whether they should be making decisions sooner, putting pressure on themselves, and then therefore it meaning that somehow this is all their fault. And I want to tell you that it's not your fault. None of this is your fault. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just how it is. And it's very, very, very normal and common to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. As I said, I've mentioned some of the things that you might be feeling, like stuck, confused, not really knowing what to do next. Perhaps you're undecided about going abroad. Perhaps you've decided that you do want to go abroad, but you just don't know what country or what clinic. And you are in that kind of limbo phase either way. And, it might feel very like this is a you thing, but actually, honestly, everybody that I speak to is experiencing some of these feelings. and other things as well. And it makes complete sense when you think about it. You know, we always think that it's us that feels these ways and nobody else, and therefore it's an us problem. It's something that we're doing wrong or not doing right. When actually, I just want to share with you that this is very, very common. And if you think about it, it makes complete sense because, you know, these things are big life things. They are massively overwhelming, emotional, upsetting, can be very slow. There's so much information and noise out there, opinions, trying to sift through what's the right information, what's wrong information, what's marketing, what's total bullshit. Opinions as well from well-meaning people, not so well-meaning people, perhaps different doctors, different systems, different services, online information, and so many decisions to make about something that I know is so important to you that it can just become paralyzing, and you're just kind of expected to figure out these things, aren't you? And I think the more pressured we feel, the harder that can then become. And you then just start to second guess everything as well, including yourself. But I want you to know that that is not a reflection on you. It's a reflection of what you're going through and how difficult this is to navigate, and how difficult this is to navigate if you're not getting the right information and the right guidance. So I want to give you some things to think about that I hope are going to be really helpful. And the first one is, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I think this is something I see really, really frequently with people. And if I was sat across from you now, I'd be saying to you, one of the first things I'd be saying to you is that you don't need to have the whole plan mapped out right now. Our brains, by default, to keep us safe, want all of the information, and we want a plan. I am such a planner, so I really resonate with what I'm saying here. But sometimes it's not possible to have a whole plan mapped out, because actually what you need to do is just work out what the next step is and take that, because perhaps what you're trying to figure out is everything at once, and maybe that's just not possible. Maybe you're trying to figure out the impossible, and then that just keeps you stuck. So when we try to figure out exactly what's going to happen on a fertility journey from A to Z, you can't do that. It is just not possible because it's unpredictable, because there are many variables. And so by trying to put this pressure on ourselves to basically do something that is impossible, it keeps you stuck. And then I think that this then adds to the pressure that you're feeling, adds to the worries about the beating clock, but also, you know, in real terms, also is taking up your time. And we know that this, for many people, is a time-sensitive journey. I'm not saying that to put any pressure on you, but I'm saying that because sometimes we're not helping ourselves. And if I say this and you think, oh my goodness, this is what I'm doing, then that's great. That's positive, because then you can stop yourself when you recognize that you're doing this. And I say this because this is the type of person I am. I like to have everything kind of figured out, all the I's dotted, the T's crossed. But sometimes it's just not possible. And also, even if it was possible, gosh, it would be massively overwhelming, right? So what is the next step? And once you figure out the next step, then you can work out what the next step is, and so on and so forth. And just tell yourself that whatever that next step is, you'll be able to figure it out. But not taking any steps, or just going around and around in circles, doing things that aren't serving you, will just continue to keep you stuck. And I don't want you to be stuck. And I have seen this, honestly, so many times through clients and people in my community. And you do not need to have it all figured out, I promise. The second thing I would say to you is researching, i.e., getting more and more information from more and more places, is not going to be the answer for you, because there's already far too much information available. and far too much information that is marketing, dressed up as facts. There is a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of utter nonsense out there, a lot of biased information out there. And do you know what? The problem isn't actually that you don't know enough. It's that you perhaps don't have the key right information that you need and in the right order and in a way that actually helps you to move forward mini step by mini step in real time. And I think this is a really, really important point because, again, from speaking to clients, from speaking to people in my community, and from things that I've done myself as well, we can almost get that analysis by paralysis. Is that the right saying? Have I got that the right way around? You know what I mean, anyway, where you just are over researching and then you begin to question because you'll find things that conflict and you potentially then in a position where you're making decisions based on the wrong information, or you're just totally overwhelmed by all of that information that you're not able to make any decisions. And, you know, it is really honestly about the right information at the right time, in the right order, and in a way that isn't confusing and that is accurate and that can just help you to continue to take those next steps and know the things that are certain and can be known and know which bits of the journey are uncertain and that you have to find out along the way. Because I think sometimes knowing that is really, really helpful because you can be like, okay, well, I know X, Y, and Z is going to happen in this process, but I know that these areas of the process are unknowns. So even knowing that is helpful because your brain can sort of go, okay, yeah, I've got that information. That's going to come later. I'm going to learn that later. And that is super powerful. So I mentioned right at the beginning that you are not the problem. Honestly, we berate ourselves so much. I remember when we were trying to conceive and, you know, my husband saying to me when he found out that actually we had issues on both sides, that he was, you know, relieved that the problem, this was his words, the problem wasn't him because he told himself he was the problem. And I said, but you aren't the problem. Even if the issue has just been on your side, you're not the problem. But that's how he felt. And then actually, we presumed that it was a problem on my husband's side, if you like, because he had undescended testicle when he was younger. And so we'd assumed that that was the reasons why we couldn't conceive. But actually, then when conversations around things like my BMI started coming into play, and when I found out that I had low ovarian reserve, etc., then I began to feel like the problem in inverted commas. And I look back now and reflect and think, oh my gosh, we were not the problem. Trying to conceive and struggling is the problem. Infertility is the problem. It's not the people. It's not the poor people going through this. And, you know, the amount of self-blame that my husband and I had was awful. And at the time, I thought that the things that we thought and the things that we felt were just isolated to us. But obviously, since then, I've worked with hundreds of people, had hundreds of conversations. And I know that this is a common thing that people feel, that somehow they are the problem or they're to blame or that their actions are somehow contributing to the reasons why they've been unable to have a baby. And I want you to know that even if you are feeling stuck and you are in inaction at the moment, that's also not your problem. You know, the reason that people feel stuck isn't because they've done something wrong or that this is their fault. It's because this process isn't easy and it isn't designed really to be navigated alone. And the system sucks in lots of countries, particularly for state-funded healthcare, for things like fertility treatment, if you're even eligible to get it. And it really is a difficult process to navigate. And even privately, it's not easy to navigate always either. And often people are given pieces of a puzzle, but not the full picture. And then it makes us question ourselves even more. And I just think at a time when you're probably likely feeling rubbish, for want of a better word, a lot of the time, I just think when you're down, it's another thing to kind of like another stick to beat ourselves with. But trust me when I say this is not you, this is so common when people are going through a fertility journey and you are not the problem. And you might be living in a bigger body, and, telling yourself that that's the reason why you can't have a baby, for example. And let me tell you that in my experience, when I've helped a lot of people in bigger bodies, it's never been the problem. I was told it was my problem as well, if you like, and why I couldn't qualify for NHS treatment. I lost a lot of weight to qualify for it, to only move the goalposts anyway and tell me I now didn't qualify again. But it didn't end up being my problem at all. It was completely unrelated. And all I did was waste a couple of years of time, my precious time, our precious time. And I don't want that for you. So, you may also be given messages that you are the problem, that this is somehow your fault. And I just want to tell you that I promise you, you are not. The fourth thing that I would be saying to you is that you are allowed to do things differently. What do I mean? You are allowed to step outside of the system of how things typically work in your home country. You're allowed to say, I want a second opinion. We want to do things differently. You're allowed to explore other options. You're allowed to step outside of what you've been told is, an inverted commas, the normal path. Because for a lot of people, that's where things start to shift. I understand that for some people, not all, the thought of leaving home and going to another country to have fertility clinic, on top of to have fertility treatment at a fertility clinic abroad, on top of the fact that having fertility treatment is already a lot and feels overwhelming. For some people, it just feels so huge. And I get that because I've been there, and you can get people saying to you things like, oh, is it safe? Should you do that? Why don't you just do it like everybody else? This kind of thing. You can be getting lots of messages from well-meaning, often friends, family, and things like that. If you listen to the article I talked about last week, in last week's episode, there are things sometimes in the media that are not positive about going abroad for fertility treatment. And often they are right in what they are saying, but it's never the full truth and never the full picture. And like with everything, if you know what you're doing, if you know where you're going to a good, safe, ethical clinic and country, then there's absolutely no concerns about going abroad to have fertility treatment, other than, for some people, the being away from home bit. But actually, that can also be really nice for lots of people as well, and can give you access to faster, better care, more options, and stretching your budget further. So, you don't have to do what the system tells you. You don't have to stay stuck on an NHS waiting list. Well, perhaps you do, depending on your financial circumstances. But, maybe you're in a position where you can say enough is enough and we're not waiting any longer. Maybe you are in a position that you are ready to have treatment privately, and you know that it doesn't always work first time, and that you want to stretch your budget further. And while X, Y, and Z person may have had their treatment in the UK, the US, wherever you live, it doesn't mean to say that you have to do the same. It doesn't mean to say that one is wrong or one is right. It's about what is best for you. And it's absolutely fine to say, I'm going to do this differently. And actually, having fertility treatment abroad isn't that much of a radical thing now. Like when I did this back in, starting my journey with fertility treatment abroad 10 years ago now, there wasn't as many people doing it, talking about it. So you have the benefit of things like this podcast. You have the benefit of coming to work with me if you need more help. There's lots more help available to you, which I know that can also actually be part of the reason why some of this feels so overwhelming. But in the right countries, in the right clinics, when you've done your research, when you've got the right help and support, you can do this differently and still do this safely and still access amazing care and perhaps options that are not even available to you in your home countries. So I want to say that it's okay to say you want a choice. So many of us have been told and made to feel like there is no choice. Well, I'm here to tell you that there are choices. And if you are going down the private fertility treatment route, then I want you to feel like you have choices and you're not just having to go with certain clinics because they're close by to where you live, or, a clinic because it's the only one that offers a higher BMI. I want you to have choices. I want you to feel looked after and cared for and confident with the clinic that you choose. Because honestly, getting the right clinic for your medical needs, your personality, your budget is going to help you have more of a chance of having a baby, because you're going to stretch your budget further. You're going to know that it's the right clinic for you. You're going to know that you're safe. And then the experience that you have, irrespective of the end result, is going to be one where you look back and think, we have no regrets. And that is huge. On a journey where nothing is guaranteed, to be able to look back and think, we're really happy, or I'm really happy with the decisions that have been made, and have no regrets, is a massive thing. But if you can go abroad and if you can save money and you can stretch your budget further and find a clinic that is absolutely nailed on for your needs, then you're going to give yourself the best chance. And the experience that you have going through this will be the best that it can be, because it's not easy. And at the same time as everything that I've said today, I've mentioned about not beating yourself up if you are currently stuck. And I mean that. But I don't want you to stay stuck here forever. Don't stay stuck here forever. That's my lasting point here, is that let yourself stay stuck for a little bit if you need to, but just check in. Don't stay stuck here forever. Work out what you need to become unstuck. Work out what that one thing is that's going to move you forward. Because honestly, your time, your energy, your emotional capacity, your fertility matters in this process. And having a plan, even just a very loose plan, just for that one next step, can change everything. It's going to move you forward. It's going to keep that momentum. And then honestly, like, the path will unfold. You will figure it out. I promise you, you will figure it out. But only if you are moving forwards. So if you're sat listening and thinking, yeah, I'm stuck, I recognize that I'm stuck, that's okay. That's a positive, because now you can think, right, what is that one teeny tiny, non-overwhelming step that you need to take to move yourself forwards? And I think sometimes what people really need is not like loads more information. It's someone to tell you that you're not doing this wrong, to ask questions, to help guide you and show you the right way, because perhaps you've not been shown that yet. So I hope that this episode has felt a little bit like that kind of conversation with me. And before you go, I just want to quickly say that if you're listening to this in real time, so before 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 29th of April, 2026, then I am running a free live training, which I very rarely do. And in that, I'm going to do, well, a couple of things. I'm going to do a live Q&A at the end. And then during the training, I'm going to give you the right information that you actually need to move forward, but in a way that's structured and easy to follow. And so it's not overwhelming, because, as I said, the problem isn't that you don't have enough information. It might be that you don't have the right information in the right order. And perhaps you just haven't been given it in a way that actually helps you to move forward and to make decisions. So through the training, I'll walk you through the options that you've got if you're feeling stuck, and what going abroad can look like for things like advanced testing and treatment. And I'll talk about costs, and I'll talk about the highlights and watch outs and the things that people won't always tell you, because they want to sell you into the idea of going abroad for fertility treatment, which is not my way. And then I'll be live there as well to answer some of your questions too. So perhaps it's about helping you to work out what your next mini step is going to be. But either way, it's completely free. And you can join however you like. So you can come with your cameras on, you can come with your cameras off, in your pajamas, eating your dinner. I really don't mind, as long as you come. I want you to carve out this time for yourself to come along, to learn more. It's perfect for you if you have either decided that you want to go abroad, and you're just in that kind of stage of, thinking about making this happen, or if you are undecided. and you need to learn more so that you can make a decision about whether or not going abroad is right for you. To sign up, you just need to go to the link in the show notes. As I said, it's completely free. If you are listening, though, to this podcast after that date, I'll also include a link to a recording of this presentation in the show notes so you can still go and watch it. But if you can join live, then I would really encourage you to do so, because it means you're going to actually prioritise watching it, which is going to help you, and you'll be able to ask me some of your questions directly there as well. All right, I'll leave it there and I'll speak to you next week. If you are facing more obstacles than options and want to learn more about how to overcome your fertility testing and treatment challenges in your home country so that you too can fast track to growing your family and on your terms, then check out my free training at yourivfabroad.co.uk/free masterclass. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and so that I can reach and help more people. Thanks.